Well, they have the word. They have those bands have quality. Really, I mean, when you're dealing with, we do maybe 4 or 5 bands a night, 5 days a week. That's 20 bands times, 4 weeks. That's 80 bands, and before you know it, you're doing 800, 900 bands a year. Usually, when you deal in things like that, the quality kind of floats to the top. So a lot of those bands have quality, and another thing that those bands have is heart, right? Just this passion to excel. I mean, not accepting 2 flyers handed out, but 20 flyers or 200 flyers. Or there's the bands that I notice are the guys, when I leave, they're out there passing out flyers every night, the same guy. And I just go to myself, how does this guy just come here every night at 2 a.m. and sit out here and pass out flyers? And because there's this want, there's this this urge to see what the next level is. And I think they realize that maybe that's their way to the top, and they really use the Roxy as a vehicle to get them there. And also, they're great musicians. I mean, we come from a place in Los Angeles where there's a lot of music, and even from the schools, there's a lot of magnet schools that have musicians, and there's the Musicians Institute, and there's a lot of schools, and so you're in a pool of people where you might have, it might be better than in Salt Lake City, where maybe there's not so many musicians, and that's why there isn't 10 bands maybe coming out of Salt Lake every year or every 2 years. But in LA there's bands coming out signed every day. There's probably a band signed in LA, and that's because they get to come to the Roxy and they get to see what that big band is doing. They get to see what the national band is doing, and they get to leave and go to their rehearsal studio and be like, oh my God, I saw Mikey from Incubus do this, and let's try this, and let's try this. And it's in front of them. It's very accessible. It'd be like wanting to be a basketball player and being able to go to every single practice and in game, and you'd probably be a pretty good basketball player after experiencing those things. Well, I've noticed we've started using some interns here at the Roxy, and they come from USC. And I think that that's a great first step, is that they're answering the phone, they're seeing what people want, they're watching the shows get booked. That's one angle, and they're all musicians, and it happens to be at the Roxy. Is probably 90% of the people that work here, maybe besides the security guards, are musicians. All the bookers are musicians. All the everyone here is a musician that works here. All our bookers, our management, they all play. They play on other nights at other clubs. So just going down to your local club and saying, can I pass out some flyers? And maybe you put me on the list, and maybe start with some promotion. And that way you get a grasp of what it takes to get people in. Once you get that, you can kind of bring your own music and start promoting yourself. And then you start promoting yourself at that venue. And you just never stop. You just keep kind of building layers on top of layers until, I've seen it many times, until you sell out the Roxy, and then a week later you're number 1 on the charts. And I've seen it many times. I mean, and I've seen it many times. A lot of my friends have 6 of them show up in their van, and that's broken down with 3 wheels, and a year later they come back in their Mercedes, and they got big smiles on their faces and houses, and they can write any kind of music they want, and they can play anywhere they want. And so it's definitely doable, all the way from passing out a flyer to selling millions of records. It's definitely doable.